A set of well-developed legs is great for more than just showing off. More leg growth means more muscle, which also means more calories burned, increasing your metabolism, and who doesn't want to eat more? More muscle overall can increase testosterone, which can then help with building muscle, and so on and so forth. In essence, building up your legs can help you build that dream upper body. In this video, I'm going to show you the best exercises to build up your quads. Let's get started. There are 3 primary leg muscles, 4 if you include the calves: quads, hamstrings, and glutes. The quad's primary function is knee extension. They are involved every time you squat, lunge, leg press, and do leg extensions. One of the quad muscles, the rectus femoris, attaches at the hip and isn't very active during these exercises, so we need to extend the hip while we flex our knee under load to really maximize our quad gains. More on that later in the video. The hamstrings do the opposite function. They flex the knee, and most of the hamstring muscles help to extend the hip. They are most present in hamstring curls, RDLs, and so forth. And last but not least, nobody ever complained about a nice set of glutes. They primarily extend the hip and also bridge the gap between helping the quads and helping the hamstrings. Think of them as that odd number friend who always plays offense during a pickup game of basketball. And of course, the calves help to point the foot, called plantar flexion. They can also help the hamstrings flex the knee when the toes are up towards the shins, called dorsiflexion. The other not as major muscles include the adductors, aka the groin, the abductors, or the outside of the hip. Both of these perform pretty similar functions: bring the leg in closer to the groin or bring it closer to the outside of the hip. I'll explain the importance of these muscles later in the series. For this video, we will focus on the quads. The legs can take a lot of load, so compound exercises are king with beefing up the legs, and you want to start with these usually anyways. More on that later. With most compound leg exercises, we have knee dominant and hip dominant, but these lines can be blurred depending on your positioning with your body and extremities. For example, for knee dominant exercises, this means any double leg knee flexion plus hip flexion exercise and any single leg knee flexion and hip flexion exercise. This includes squats, leg presses, and any variations. Remember how the lines are blurred? This depends on the knee flexion and the hip flexion angle. For example, if the heels are lower in the leg press, this means more knee flexion occurs, which means more quads involved than the glutes. This also happens vice versa. If the heels are higher in the leg press, this means more hip flexion occurs, which means the glutes are more involved in the quads. With squats, there are so many variations: high bar, low bar, front, goblet, heels elevated, just to name a few. The most important things to remember with squats is that the line of resistance should be straight, not forward or backward. Take a look at this barbell squat I'm doing. See how the bar path is going forward and backward? If I had a lot of weight on the bar, it would send me toppling forward or falling back. Whereas, if I keep it in line with where it starts, I'm better able to control it and not use other muscles to help keep my balance. In the same regard, you want your knees to stay in line with your 3rd and 4th toes. Squatting like this gives you the strongest pressing leverage from your knees. Think about it. If my knees were to jut out or jut in, do you think I'd be able to lift a super heavy weight like this? Of course not. I can't push with nearly as much force if my thighs and shins aren't pressing in line with each other. Now, where the weight is positioned will determine how your torso will be positioned, and similar to the leg press, which muscles you are biasing. This biomechanical analysis found that the low bar squat places greater emphasis on the glutes, whereas a high bar squat places greater emphasis on the knees or the quads. And this makes sense, since those muscles are the most stretched during these exercises. Typically, the more you stretch the muscle, the more you're targeting the muscle for more hypertrophy. But it makes sense for front bar and goblet squats to hit the quads more as well, given they flex the knee even more. Add a weight plate underneath the heels or go up on a slant board, and you're stretching the quads out very well. One study looked at the 1 rep max for barbell squats of 71 Division I athletes in football, softball, and volleyball, and looked at their injury rates throughout the athletes' playing seasons. They found that the relative 1 rep max back squat strength was significantly lower in injured players than uninjured players for both men and women, with uninjured men and women having higher mean back squat relative strengths of around 2.2 and 1.63 respectively. What the later part means is that they are able to back squat 2.2 times their body weight for men and 1.63 times their body weight for women. And I'm guessing most of you watching aren't D1 athletes and probably don't step onto the court or field at all, but it does make sense that the stronger you are, the less injury prone you would be. You would have stronger muscles and tendons to resist higher forces. It doesn't hurt to go heavy on the squats, staying in the 4 to 10 rep range for 3 to 4 sets. There are plenty of other exercises to go for lighter weight and higher reps. The only caveat would be the heels elevated goblet squat. These are especially brutal for sets of 12 to 20, but even given how deep of a stretch you can get in these for the quads, I believe there are better options. The reason I've been leaning away from heels elevated goblet squats is the fact that your thoracic extensors the muscles keeping you upright and preventing the dumbbell in front of you from falling you forward, are only going to be able to take so much weight until they fatigue out faster than your quads. A better option that would be easy to progress would be the back squat version or the Smith machine version. Let me explain. Simply adding weight plate under the heels allows my knees to bend even more than they normally would, since my ankle mobility is no longer a limiting factor. Make sure to have 2 lighter weight plates when doing this so you can put them close to each other to keep the thighs more in front of the body, or find a larger weight plate where you can easily weasel your ankles closer to each other. When we take a wider stance, our adductors get more involved, and this limits the contribution of the quads. Narrowing our stance allows the quads to do most of the work. Just make sure to be very careful when doing this. One wrong move and you slip with a lot of weight on your back, not a good thing. You want to ease into the amount of weight used with this as well. You're definitely not going to be using your 5 rep max weight with these, and you want to aim for higher reps, around the 8 to 15 rep range for 2 to 4 sets. Now, Smith machine is an awesome tool for these, as you don't have to worry about falling forwards or backward since the bar is fixed to the machine. You'll be able to get a nice deep stretch with this and use more weight than the regular barbell version. Plus, you may not even need weight plates or on your heels, depending on your mobility and how you position yourself. The only downside is most commercial gyms only have a few of these, and if they're taken, then you're out of luck. I would use similar sets and rests for these as well. What I found to be even better than these is a hack squat machine. We have easy load capacity, no barbell to worry about. The machine keeps us stable, so we aren't worried about balance, and we can easily make this more quad dominant or glute dominant with a simple shuffle of our feet either back or forward. Like I talked about earlier in this video, scooting our feet in would flex the knee more and therefore work the quads more. Want to give the glutes more love? Scoot the feet further out so you flex the hips more. You can even make the first couple sets more quad dominant and the later sets more glute dominant. Just make sure to track it accurately. With these, you can easily work in a wider variety of rep ranges, anywhere from 6 to 15 again for 2 to 4 sets. You'll be surprised how quickly you can increase the amount of weight you can lift with these. So heavier compounds for the quads are great. What about isolation exercises for the quads? Here's what I've had to change my stance on several times throughout my fitness journey. Let's start with the leg extension. I used to believe these were from the devil himself and they would wreck your ACLs. You would hardly be able to walk from the grade 3 tears you get. Yeah, I was wrong. Here's the thing. I firmly believe there are no bad exercises. Think about this. If leg extensions really did place a tremendous amount of strain on the ACL, what would be worse? Doing them for 40 pounds, which is hardly any weight, or 240 pounds, which is a lot of weight? Obviously the 240 pounds would be substantially more load. But if you do 40 pounds, it's not going to do nearly the amount of stress as the 240 pounds. There are plenty of people who do much more than 40 pounds for leg extensions and have nothing wrong with their knees or any structures in the knees, including their ACLs. I worked up to doing single leg extensions with 140 pounds for multiple reps for lengthened partials with no issues with my knees at all. It's all about progressive overload, with an emphasis on progressive. Don't just stack on the maximum amount of weight the first time you try them. Start off with a lightweight and increase by 5 to 10% per week per tolerance in the 10 to 20 rep range for 3 to 5 sets. I use a lot of sets with these as the quads can take on quite a bit of volume and load. Leg extensions don't fatigue out as much as heavier squats do, so we will take advantage of this with more sets. Now, there are a lot of settings on the leg extension machine that can confuse 95% of people. How far forward should my torso be? Where should the pad go? Where should it start? Just like with earlier in the series, we ideally want to work in the most lengthened position for every muscle group. This means taking the seat back as far as you can, positioning the pad as far back as well, and adjusting the pad's height to be right above your feet. Notice how my quads are stretched out much more in this position than if I were to have the seat and pad all the way forward. More of a loaded stretch means more muscle. The seat angle is especially important due to the study that compared different hip flexion angles and rectus femoris activity with leg extension. The rectus femoris is one of the 4 quad muscles, but unlike the other 3, the rectus femoris crosses the hip joint, meaning when the hip is flexed, the rectus femoris is shortened, it doesn't work as much as the other quad muscles do. To really maximize quad development, we need to get the hip into extension or close to it while flexing the knee under load. The study found that when the hip flexion angle is lower, basically when the seat was further back, there's more rectus femoris activity. This makes sense with our theme and the research we have. More of a loaded stretch, more growth. I like to hold on to the handles and pull myself down into the seat while doing leg extensions so I don't use the glutes. Really think about extending your leg out, not up. Also, you don't even have to squeeze your quads at the top. This study compared doing the leg extension at varying degrees of range of motion and measured 1 rep max and quad growth. They found the group doing just the initial range of motion, which is the first 35 degrees or 100 degrees in knee flexion to only 65 degrees, results in more quad growth than even doing the full 100 to 30 degree group. They also found greater 1 rep max increases in that specific range of motion compared to the other groups, besides the final range of motion group at 65 to 30 degrees. I've been doing these myself and found them to be super effective and less fatiguing. I can generally rest 1 to 2 minutes between sets and bust out close to the same number of reps as I did the set before, and I quickly increased the weight even with the single leg version. I haven't had any knee pain with these, nor has my performance suffered with squats or other exercises. Now, save the best exercise for last. This may just be the single best quad isolation exercise that I know of so far. The reverse Nordic curl checks off all the boxes to make the perfect quad exercise. Does it fully stretch out the rectus femoris? Yes. Is it lengthen partial friendly? Yes. Can you progressively overload it? Yes. Can you superset it with practically any exercise? Yeah. Obviously these seem intimidating. When I show this exercise to patients, I always look up to see the widest eyes imaginable with a face of regret. However, these are scalable. I'll start them off holding onto a resistance band for assistance. The goal would be to get their butt to their heels. This could take many sessions until we are able to get this deep, but it is possible. This 2019 study saw some great hypertrophy from the rectus femoris with reverse Nordic curls. One mistake I see people make is excessively arching their back. The rectus femoris attaches at the anterior inferior iliac spine. Wow, I said that right the first time. What this means from nerd talk to layman's terms is this. You feel the bony part in the front of your hip? That's called the anterior superior iliac spine. It's just a part of the hip that we nerds use as a landmark. About an inch or so below that is the anterior inferior iliac spine. We call it the AIIS for short. When you arch your back, you shorten the rectus femoris in the hip joint since you bring the AIIS more forward. It would make more sense to bring the AIIS back, which is what you do when you go into posterior pelvic tilt. This also engages the core more, preventing any unnecessary strain on the low back and fully lengthening the rectus femoris. Hold on tight when you go back. You need a way back up. Once you can do a set of 12, decrease the assistance until you can do another set of 12 at that level of assistance, and repeat until you start doing them with body weight. Start with your arms extended in front of you for counterbalance. Use the same 12 rep progression, progress to having your hands on your chest, and finally add some weight with your arms either in front of you or on your chest. Out in front will be easier, and at your chest will be harder. You can also play around with the biomechanics this way. If these get stale or you plateau, work on eccentric only, where you have the weight at your chest, but you go down, and once you get it almost to your butt touching your heel, bend your hips forward and extend your arms for counterbalance, reset at the top, and repeat. You can also put the weight by your forehead while you lower down to make it even harder. These are excellent to implement at the end of a workout for 2 to 3 sets of 6 to 12 reps. Reverse Nordic curls can be very technical, so I don't like to do them for too many reps. Well, there you have it, the best quad exercises I come to know and love. Now, there are plenty of other good quad exercises such as lunges and leg presses, but I will go over these in my glutes video and explain why there. Hope you found this video helpful. Let me know your favorite quad exercises in the comments below, even if I didn't give it a shout out on the video. Click like if you, well, like the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps me out to know the best content to give you. If you want more content like this or a more in-depth look at quad development, let me know in the comments as well, and I'll see you guys here in the next video.